Something new. Got this from Toys Metaverse. This just in today. I don't know if it actually has like an actual product box or if it's just showing up like this and it's going to be a plain box on the inside. We'll find out in a second. So yeah, kind of a wintry, frosty, bloody little box there. Not too bad. You might recognize this logo. What's that look like to you? So this guy's name, had to pull it up so I could see, is JMTOYS 1/12 Freeze action figure. Cloth, in parentheses, of course, as you can see. Any similarities to any other character are purely coincidental. Now, obviously, if you're a figure collector, you may be familiar with third parties and knockoffs and all these kind of unlicensed figures, so this is very clearly just, I'll say, inspired by Mortal Kombat X Sub-Zero. And I gotta tell you, visually, he's very striking. They did a good job with the costume, like in terms of its visual flair, how it looks. Like they did a nice job mixing soft goods with like kind of the harder overlay pieces that go like on his wrist bracers and his like belt. So visually speaking, purely from an aesthetic level, this looks great. I had the chance to mess with this figure a little bit off camera, and I'm gonna tell you, it's flawed. It's definitely flawed. We'll get to that. As you zoom in, you can see he's got his like Lin Kuei little pendant thing on his you know, gi overlay, if you want to call it that, whatever this thing is. He's got the stripes going up and down like the headgear and everything. Some nice paintwork, honestly, like really, really good. You can see the eyes are like kind of a icy blue. As you go down the body, you can see like the armor on his upper arm and on his forearms with like little ice knives in there, little daggers. Same for the waist piece. So the belt and this front little strip of like hanging cloth is actually a hard piece. It's all one solid piece, and it does wrap around the figure, and same thing for the back. Now the tunic and the little like flaps underneath those front and back pieces, that's all soft goods. So that's like kind of a quilted piece. And then this black part underneath, like from his neck down to the front of the body, is also kind of just like an overlay. It's a plastic, but it's a soft enough plastic where it's not going to inhibit his articulation when the time comes to actually pose this guy around. Something else is going to do that. I also just realized there was this little tie thing that's meant to plug into the back of his head, like to represent a bandana. It was just in the package. I didn't notice it sitting in the tray when I took it out. So when I saw there was like a tiny little hole in the back of his head, I was like, what's this all about? And then figured, oh, that's what it is. So cool little detail. I like it. Again, detail-wise, there's very little I can see that I have any issues with the figure. As you go down, he's got like kind of the harder rubber overlay pieces with like the elastic bands, kind of similar to like Mezco TMNT, the way they did their like knee pads and everything. So this is going to be like a hard overlay over top of like the cloth goods pants. And then the boots, you've got like the big metal, like shiny looking overlays in the front, wrapped the whole way around, very good. And then on the soft goods themselves, at the hip level, just beneath hip level, he's got like brown kind of leather straps that are stitched to like the pants material. So overall, very nice looking figure. Again, I emphasize that. There's nothing wrong with the way this guy looks. So articulation wise, at the head, you are going to be able to get him to look side to side. No problems there. You're going to get a little bit of up and down at the top part of the neck where the head plugs in, but there's also a joint at the base of the neck too. So you are going to be able to push it a little bit farther, get him look about that far up, that far down. And, you know, as you start incorporating like the ab crunch and stuff, there'll be a little more, as well as like kind of, you know, tilts his head side to side there. So decent range in the head, actually, not too bad at all. And like I said, this plastic overlay is not hindered by any of this because it kind of like is a floating piece underneath here. So if it does end up looking weird, you won't see it because he's got the tunic thing in front. At the arms, you can see he's got a ball peg that plugs in there, very SH Figuarts-like. I slid the armor piece down, but yeah, you're gonna get some good range out of that. You can get his arm, like his shoulder, you know, kind of up higher or down lower, depending on how you want him posed. It's gonna spin the whole way around, which always good. And then you're actually gonna be able to get it up just over 90 degrees if you put it straight out. And obviously you can, you know, tweak it from there. At the shoulder, there is a bicep cut, so you'll be able to manipulate that, and you will get a nice, deep, double jointed elbow and pinless, and everything looks nice there. So one of the first issues I have with this figure is actually the way the hands connect. Now, these hands were very hard to get onto the wrists. I thought it was maybe because the bracers were like kind of like out a little too far. I don't know if the peg is like a little too maybe short for like the hole in the wrist. It could be something like that, but I know that like when I try and like pose the hands, they pop off very easily, and I think it's just because there's not really enough of a secure connection between the wrist peg and the fist itself. And I had similar issues with other hands as well, so I think it is just a design thing that they could have done a better job with. So at the chest, you do get like a little side to side kind of like diaphragm movement there, as well as back and forth. I'll move his arm. You can see the cut right in there because of the way his outfit is. So, you know, there's no hiding that necessarily. It's all right there. But you do get a nice deep crunch, and, you know, like I said, this cloth piece will kind of like move with it. So if it does bunch up, you can always kind of straighten that out. Pretty decent twist at the waist. Again, it's going to be kind of limited by the soft goods. So, you know, as you twist farther, it's going to pull some of the soft goods up a little bit, and you're going to have to like kind of straighten that out when you pose the figure. All right, so I did mention the wrist pegs being an issue. Here's where the rest of the figure falls apart for me. We get to the legs, where you would expect a ninja to be able to have articulation. You know, he's a ninja. He's going to be doing some kicking, yeah? Well, not this ninja. Look at this. That's about as far up as you're going to get his leg. And you might be thinking, well, you could probably supplement it with the hip joints or something, right? Well, you would if the pants weren't made out of such kind of rigid, non-flexible, non-stretchy material. So these pants are not stretchy in the slightest. So I was thinking these would be very similar to like a Mezco 1/12, like, you know, superhero figure where it's more of a spandexy material. Not the case. This is just straight up very rigid, very form-fitting cloth. And because it fits that form, it has a hard time getting into any other form. So in other words, that's as far apart as you're going to get his legs without stretching the seam in the middle of his like crotch area. So as soon as I got this figure and realized that was what was happening here, I instantly went into like surgery mode. I like took the whole figure apart and was trying to figure out, well, is it the body that they used? Like, is the body just very limited in articulation? Nah, body's great. You can pretty much get his body kicking straight up in front or out to the side, no problem. It's the pants. Now, how do you get around that? I mean, you would have to get like a different pair of pants and then like transfer all of this stuff over top of that pair of pants to make it happen, I guess. I don't know. Like, I don't know how far I'm really willing to take this. But yeah, anything at hip level, you're not going to get much out of it at all. I mean, pretty nice deep double knee joint. I got to give him that. That's really good. And the, you know, little knee pad thing here does not get in the way of that at all. There's also a swivel at the boot, so you can get around that a little bit, which is not too bad. Honestly, that's pretty good. Not too much in the ankle. I mean, Mezco in general, and I keep comparing this to Mezco, obviously this is not, but Mezco in general doesn't have a ton of ankle movement, although this one does seem to have like a spin at the ankle, right above the ankle, and not much of a rocker, but a little bit. Nothing crazy. Not that you would even need the rocker, because it's not like his feet are leaving the ground. This freaking guy with these pants. Come on. Freaking Grandmaster the Lin Kuei over here, and he can't do a kick. Martial Arts 101. One of the first moves anybody learns in any kind of like combat sport martial art is a side kick. Sometimes you just do like a chamber into a kick. Sometimes you do a little step behind in a thing. Usually if you're breaking your board on your first martial arts test, you're doing a side kick of some kind. The Grandmaster the Lin Kuei here, ladies and gentlemen, he said, nah, I can't do any of that. And I apologize for the graphic imagery here, but you can see that I'm not exaggerating this. Like, you can see any farther than this, and that seam is looking like it's showing some stress right there already. So, I mean, I guess if you wanted to, like, slit through that, the problem is the figure's body is the same color as his skin, which means, you know, it's going to look like he split his pants. Balls hanging out while he's kicking. So anyway, I'm done ranting about that for the time being. Let's look at some of his accessories. Now, he comes with another head that, as far as I can tell, is basically identical to the head that he comes on the body. The problem is, well, not the problem, but the difference is this one has a wider peg, which tells me this is meant for a different body. Like, are they intending for you to switch bodies on this figure? I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you know what this is, because I don't mess with these third-party things very often, so I'm completely at a loss. As far as hands go, you've got these kind of tight gripping hands with the fingers like clenched inward. You've got a pair of wider gripping hands. These are probably meant to be like holding some of the weapons and stuff he comes with, which we'll get to. He's got a pair of slightly different looking wide open fingers splayed out gesturing hands. You know, for ice attacks and all that kind of stuff. One, you can see his left hand is like wide open and his right hand has a little bit more of like finger grip kind of stylization to it. They're both cool. And he's got another pair of like martial arts hands that are like posing, pointing. These are so he can point at everybody that he isn't going to kick. And then finally two more gesturing hands. These are like just kind of a flat palm for the right hand and a two-finger point for the left hand. It's like a clear ice translucent head. This is actually really cool. I don't know if this is meant to be put on the body. It looks like it is because it's got like the smaller peg hole. So this would fit on the body, although the fact that the peg hole thing is white means you're going to just see it right through the clear plastic. But I mean, still nicely sculpted. You also have this skull, which missing the jaw, but I mean, that's not bad at all, because I mean, maybe he just punched it off you. I mean, I could tell you he didn't kick it off you. But it's got this wide peg hole on the bottom, which tells me this little extra piece is meant to plug into here. Let's see. All right, yeah, that goes right in there. So now you've got a smaller, more narrow peg hole to be able to plug in this thing, maybe? No, that doesn't fit. What is happening? All right, I got that out of there. That was way too much of a fight. But this, you can see this ain't gonna, like, it doesn't plug in anything, but it does, I mean, it holds its place, which is not bad. And every Sub-Zero figure I've gotten in the last couple of years has had one of these types of accessories, and they all are welcome. I like the details on this one too. It's like just straight all the way down to the tailbone. Nothing too fancy. Is it a bendy wire? No, I think it's just pliable plastic. But either way, nicely done. All right, another point that I have to hand this figure is the ice weapons are all really, really well done. I do really like these a lot. Here's his axe. This is very reminiscent of one of the axes that comes with, I believe, the McFarlane Sub-Zero. But this is nicely done. The paint, the coloring on it looks great. I will say, like I said before, putting the hand on that wrist, just atrocious. Like, I don't know why it's so difficult to do. I do think it's just down to the peg not being the right size, but yeah, this is what you get when you buy third party, I guess. And here's the sword. Same kind of thing. It's like a translucent blue plastic with like highlights painted onto it. I like the shape of this a lot. I do think it's really, really nicely decorated and everything, especially when you get it like reflecting in the light. Catches light really nicely. Was gonna put him in a nice, cool sword fighting stance, and then I remembered my man can't move his legs. He's got a couple of ice daggers here. This one's Fang McFrost, and this one's Chili McFreeze. Yeah, one of you might have got that. Anyway, these look really nice too. I gotta hand it to all the weapons. They are all nice, translucent blue with like some little white, like I don't know if it's like speckling or some kind of highlighting going on with that. Like, they do look good. It might be tough to tell, but there is some kind of texture on the daggers themselves too. So it looks kind of like splitting, cracking ice. So these are nicely done. But again, with the way the wrists move, you're not going to get a ton of like, you know, knife fighting poses out of them, because you're probably going to pop the wrist off before you do that. And then next up we got this big hammer thing, which I mean, this looks great. You can see kind of like the texturing I was talking about on the daggers a lot more prominently on this, because it's sculpted on and then dry brushed over. So I think like the larger accessories, you notice that a lot more. So for example, like the axe, it's very prominent in the hammer, but on the thinner kind of bladed accessories, it's a little tougher to tell. But you know, this accessory looks good. He can hold it relatively well. I mean, you're not going to get crazy range of poses from this, just down to the wrist movement again, but when you do have it in the figure's hands, he does look cool with it. Cool, Jesus. And then last, he has like his ice ball effect. I just kind of have it like kind of resting in between his hands here. It's nicely done. It's got some cool like little layering effects to it. You can see like kind of swirls around the main part of the you know, ice ball, I guess it would be. And you know, it does look cool. It's nicely painted, but you're never going to get him in that pose, because he needs to be kind of like squatted down a little bit to be able to do his ice ball pose. So yeah. So if you're going to put him with some other Sub-Zeros in your collection, here are the ones I have from Storm Collectibles. That is the MK1/MK2 version with the Jazzwares MK9 sword, I believe. That is the MK3 version of Sub-Zero, and that is the Ultimate MK3/MK Trilogy kind of, you know, Bihan version of Sub-Zero. And he's actually more in scale with Storm Collectibles than I thought he would be. I was expecting him to be like smaller, because typically Storm Collectibles runs just giant. Like Storm is typically between like 7.5 inch scale for like your average, you know, human character. I was expecting this guy to be kind of more Mezco scale, which is smaller, you know, like 6.5 inches, like whatever, you know, much smaller than these guys. But it's interesting to see that he kind of pairs up all right with these guys, which also makes me think we got to get Goro in here. So this is a bit much for me. I think this is going to be a no from me, dog. But yeah, this is the only MKX era figure that I have. I know Mezco did a few, like, you know, back when the game was out, and I never got any of those. So for now, this is Storm's MKX version of Goro. It's a really good figure, and I never thought we would come full circle to be able to say that there's a Goro figure out here with better leg movement than one of the ninjas. Like, you know what Goro can do? He can kick. Yep. So here he is with a couple of the McFarlane Toys offerings. On this side we got the Ice variant, and then on this side is kind of the standard MK11 version. And actually this iced over one came with one of those axes that's very, very similar to the one that this third-party one comes with. So it's a little smaller, but it's painted and looks very much the same. So, you know, just nice to have another different option, slightly bigger. But you can see, speaking of slightly bigger, like the McFarlane figures are scaled larger than this third-party one is. You know, so whereas I think he looked all right with the Storm figures I had in here before, I can tell that he's still on the smaller side, and you know, maybe he will scale better with some Mezco stuff. We'll see. So here he is next to Mezco Batman. This is the Sovereign Knight Batman. And these do look pretty good together. Sub-Zero is a little bit on the taller side, so I'm not sure exactly what kind of scale they were going for. They're entirely doing their own thing. But you know, he's a little bit taller than Mezco scale, but a little bit smaller than like every other Mortal Kombat scale out there on the figure market. So yeah, third party's just all over the place as it is, but I was kind of hoping for a little bit more synergy. Not that it truly matters, because I tell you what, my whole big plan, I was going to do like a Mortal Kombat versus DC stop motion. Oh, it would have been tight. I would have had the cloth goods Batman and then the Sub-Zero with the cloth goods too. I even ordered a wired cape for this Batman so that when I animated him I could like pose the cape and everything. Oh, it was going to be so dope. And then I got this and my guy can't even do a kick. So yeah, that was the end of that plan. But you know, they look good together at least, I guess. And here he is with Vader. Alright, so let's run it down here. Great looking figure, as I've said. He does have a lot of very striking detail, and the costuming and everything looks visually very well done. The gripes, obviously the fact that his legs cannot function because of the way they did the pants. That's just like a huge oversight in my opinion. And then there's the hands that don't really like stay on the wrists very well, and they fall off easily, and you know, you're never quite sure if they're on there securely. So that's, man, not great. Again, striking visually, but just not great to actually mess around with and pose, because you're either going to knock the hands off of the wrists, or you're not going to be able to get them to do any kind of kicks or ninja moves or deep stances or any of that kind of stuff. So for a character like Sub-Zero, who's known for that, like, that's definitely disappointing. And I know third party is not necessarily meant to be held to the same standard as, like, you know, domestic or import figure manufacturers. You're going to have, you know, issues and some different things that you might not get from, you know, the kind of the bigger name figure manufacturers. But, you know, still, this was probably, I can't remember if it was like 70 or 80 bucks when it was all said and done. It was one of those ones where, like, I saw it, I put in, like, the pre-order and deposit, and I was like, ha, by the time, you know, the figure's ready, I'll just pay for it all then. I don't have to pay that much for it right now. And then like a couple weeks ago when I got like the email, it's like, hey, your rest of your bill is due for that Sub-Zero if you forgot you ordered. I was like, oh, all right, sick. And then I got all excited about doing the MK versus DC thing. I bought the wired cape for Batman, was like, oh man, this is gonna be so tight when I get to animate these guys. And then I tried to like literally move this guy's legs and I got nothing out of him. So, you know, like I said, if somebody comes along and does like a custom pair of pants that's made out of stretchier material, we might be able to, I don't know, do something with this. You know how it is on this channel. I like to keep things pretty lighthearted, pretty positive. I don't like to get too dredged up in the negativity or any of that nonsense. So, you know, when something comes along like this and I'm like, man, I really, really wanted to love this, that's a bummer. So as far as like recommendations go, like, you know, just, buy it if you want, I guess. Just don't really expect that it's going to do much besides like stand there, basically. Anyway, my name is Captain McKay. Thanks for watching this. We got stop motion, some Mortal Kombat stop motion should be popping up on the screen right now, as well as maybe some other stuff behind the scenes. Feel free to check any of those out if you enjoyed this video, and we'll catch you in the next one. Later on.